Um, Hello. Okay, so I would like to welcome you for the second part of the course of the Biology 2, Biol 232. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Mahmoud Khalil. As you see, I got my PhD from University College London, one of the most prestigious universities in the world in the UK. This was followed with a postdoc at MD Anderson Cancer Center, one of the most very good centers for treating cancer, and one of the pioneers that deal with the personalized medicine or customized medicine for cancer. As well, I'm the head of the Department of the Biological Sciences at BAU. Okay. First of all, you need to understand that it's not you, it's biology. It is the union between the gametes and the one single cell from each of your parent that result into you. So it's a majorly biology that lead to your body as an organism. I'm just reminding you of the ways of assessment of Biol 2. So you have a midterm that's around 30% of the mark, and you have assignments that are around 20%, and you have a presentation plus team-based learning around 10%, and you have the final exam around 40%. So in this section of the course, we'll deal with all the material concerned with the animal generally. So generally, we have 8 topics. We'll talk about initially for the overview, diversity, and the basic principle of form and function with respect to the animal structure. And as well, we'll deal with the animal cell structure. Then we'll go to the animal basic principle of form and function. So initially in the first topic, we'll talk generally, and then we'll go more details toward the animal basic principle of form and function. Then we'll move to the animal nutrition and see different modes of digestion and the regions of our digestive system that do digestion, and as well the different enzymes involved in the digestion. This will be followed by blood and circulation, and we'll see how the circulatory system works in different organisms in the animals kingdom. Then we'll talk about gas exchange, and we'll understand the difference between gas exchange and circulation. Then we'll deal with the osmoregulation, one of the important processes that maintain the integrity of our body, as well as excretion. Then we'll finalize the topic with animal reproduction and the development. Your responsibility will do a presentation on the animal behavior, which around 22 pages from the reference that I will upload it on Moodle. So basically, you will use this reference, the animal, to do this reference to do the chapter, which around 22 pages, to do this animal behavior presentation. So you start with the first topic, which is overview, diversity, basic principle of form and function. So you need to understand that all the organisms in general have an order. They are very highly ordered structure, and this one of the features that characterize life. And you can see a perfect example of this is the sunflower. You can see how it's organized and in order. As well, there are some evolutionary adaptation. You can see this type of seahorse. It can do camouflage to disappear and try to mimic the surrounding in order to survive. One of the features that characterize the animals. As well, you can see regulation in the animal kingdom. So you can see this type of the rabbit. It have very long ears, and even you can see the blood vessel moving, innervating inside its ear, and this enriches the ears by blood flow and help to maintain the body temperature of the rabbit, because it can release the high surface area of the ears can release a lot of heat if the body of the animal have been overheated, and this will decrease its body temperature, its overall body temperature. As well as energy processing characterizing the animal organisms through the formation. Some animals, some especially you can see in this insect, it have the ability to convert the nectar and uses the nectar for its energy processing, and it can convert it biologically inside its body to form fuel, and that's energy processing from nectar. As well, you can see the grass and development organisms must be characterized by grass and development. They inherit genes from parents that allow them to grass and develop. As well, other organisms can adapt, can respond to environment. One of the famous example is the Venus flytrap, and this is a type of plant that can capture any insect moving inside this plant, and it can digest it with proteases, and it can use this material for its grass. The reproduction, of course, one of the major characteristics of animal as well in plant organisms generally, and all these organisms can reproduce in order to ensure continuity in life. So let's talk about the level of biological organization. So we have generally the biosphere. It's a huge, which contain different ecosystems. So what's the definition of an ecosystem? Ecosystem, actually, it is the unit which containing the community of organisms and their environment interacting together. So it's the biosphere is a collection of a different ecosystem. So since we said that ecosystem is a unit containing the community of organisms, so the lower level in the biological organization is community. And actually community is all of the population of different species in an ecosystem. This, of course, is followed. So the population actually consists of different organisms, and each organism is consist of different. Each organism is consist of organs and organ system, which is composed of different tissue that is composed of different cells, and each cell is composed of different organelles, and you go for the lowest level, which is molecules. Here again, you can see another figure showing the levels of the biological organization. So you can see starting from an atom now that composes a molecule that can compose the cell, soon after that the tissue forming the organ, the body system, the organisms that share its part in the population together with another species of the animal, forming the community and interacting with the other populations. Soon after that, with the interaction with the environment, you will see it will form the ecosystem, and all different ecosystem will form the biosphere. So let's talk about the characteristics of living organisms. Actually, there are 7 characteristics. We can always summarize, always remember these 7 characteristics by the initials Mrs. Grin. So actually start with the movement. So any living organism should move. Even a single organism should move. So it's action. Actually, the movement is the action by organism to move either by its whole body or using part of his body to move. Fungi and plants, for instance, move with part of their body, while single-celled organisms like amoeba, for example, paramecium, for example, euglena, for example, bacteria, they move as a whole. The second characteristic of the life is the respiration. And actually respiration, it is a chemical reaction actually involved with the breakdown of food in living cells to release energy for metabolism. And you have two types of respiration, either aerobic or anaerobic. And of course, aerobic in case you use oxygen. So that's why it's called oxidation of food. And you can see that the word equation of the aerobic respiration, it is a breakdown of glucose in the presence of oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy, one of the major product needed by organisms. And you can see how differ when you write it down as a balanced chemical equation. You need one molecule of glucose to produce as much as around 2,000 or 3,000 kilojoule of energy. For the anaerobic respiration, actually it is incomplete breakdown of food and there is no use of the oxygen. So it occurs, two of the famous example is one that's occurring in yeast, which is one of the most primitive eukaryotic animals, eukaryotic organisms. And you have the muscles, our muscles. So for the yeast, it do alcoholic fermentation, while in muscles, it do acidic fermentation. So you can see that glucose in either cases, in the first case, it formed one of the product is alcohol, and that's why it's called alcoholic fermentation, and it releases energy as well. While the acidic fermentation in the muscle, one of the product is the lactic acid, together with the energy. So you can see that one of the major product of respiration, either it's aerobic or anaerobic, you can see that it is the production of energy. But you need to understand that in aerobic respiration, the amount of energy produced is much higher than the amount produced in the anaerobic respiration. Then the third characteristic of the living organism is sensitivity. And actually, it's as the name implies, it's the ability to sense any stimulus, even either external or internal. And it's not only the ability to sense, but the ability to make the correct response for these different stimulus from the environment. For the growth, one of the main characteristics of living organism, actually it is the permanent increase in size and dry mass, as well as increase in the number of cell number or cell size, or both. For the reproduction, one of the other characteristics, it's the process of making more of the same organism, proliferating. So actually you have two kinds of reproduction, either asexual and sexual. And this is like a simple comparison between both types of the reproduction. So of course, you need one parent in the asexual reproduction, while you need two in sexual reproduction. The gametes, the single cell gamete, there is no gametes in asexual, while there is gametes as well. The rate you need for the asexual reproduction, the rate of reproduction is very fast, while it's very slow in the sexual reproduction. The cell division is mitotic in asexual, while in sexual it is meiotic followed by mitotic division. One of the peculiar difference between asexual and sexual is the offspring number and shape. So for the asexual, the offspring number is identical, large in number, and identical to parent. While the other, since there is a meiotic division, so the offspring will show a lot of variation, differ from the parents, and their number are few. For the excretion, actually, it's a very important characteristic because the body generates a lot of waste product and toxic material and substance due to the high number of the chemical reaction that occur naturally due to the breakdown of food and the biological process that occur inside our body and even in all organisms. So these substance, even the substance that is in excess in the requirement of the organism, need to be excreted, because the body of the organism is not like a storage can. So it's an important process, otherwise it will lead to toxicity and lead to death. You must understand that egestion is the removal of undigested food from organisms, and egestion actually it's different from excretion. The last characteristic is the nutrition. And actually, as name implies, it's the ability to take up material for the use of production of energy, for the growth, and for development. For plants, as you already know, it requires only light, carbon dioxide, water, and ions. From all these four components, it can do all sort of chemical compounds, and it can grow and multiply and division and develop, while animal needs organic compounds, iron and water. So you can see that the type of nutrition differs generally between plants and animals. In plants, majorly the type of nutrition is autotrophic, which is the ability to build any organic substance from simple inorganic substance by its own self. So as we said, it can use carbon dioxide and water to form glucose, which is the simplest carbohydrate monosaccharide used to build more complex when polymerized. For heterotrophic organism, which is the type of nutrition, you can see that there's different types of animal, but all of them majorly is heterotrophic. And what's meaning of heterotrophic? That's mean that this kind of organism will depend on others for getting its nutrients. You can see herbivores feed on plants, while carnivorous feed on animals, while omnivorous like ourselves feed on plants and animals. You have as well parasitic, which feed on living organisms and do harm for them, while the saprophytic or the decomposer, they only feed on dead or decaying matter. They just release digestive enzyme and absorb the soluble products. And these, the famous example that do this kind of digestion is the bacteria and fungi. So in this type of organism, they do some sort of external digestion. They don't do internal digestion like ourselves. They pour the digestive enzymes over the dead or decaying matter, and these digestive enzymes will digest the compound over there, and then absorb back the soluble product. So let's talk now about the domains of life. So majorly you have three domains of life. You have the big major domain, which is bacteria. And bacteria actually it's the most diverse and widespread prokaryotes. And actually it is classified to multiple kingdom. You can see that it can be classified by its shape, its mode of living. But in the figure, you can see one of the type of the rod shape structure bacteria. The other major domain of life, one of the very important domain, which is called archaea. And the name archaea it's a Latin word, archaea, came from the fact that this collection of organisms actually exists ages ago. And that's why archaea Latin name means very old. And actually, they are mostly prokaryotes, and they live not only they have survived aged ago, but they can live in very extreme environment, such as the salty lakes, even boiling hot spring, and these as well include multiple kingdom. The third domain of life is the eukarya, and eukarya comes from eukaryotes. And the major example of it, the planet kingdom Planeta, and of course consists of a lot of terrestrial multicellular eukaryotes, as well as there are some example of aquatic plants. Then we have the kingdom fungi, and this kingdom fungi, actually it was, just hold on. So these kingdom fungi, actually, they have a very peculiar nutritional mode. So they absorb the nutrients from the soil, and they make, they can grow, they can do, they are actually autotrophs as well, and they can do their material and energy, got energy from the soil. And the famous example of fungi is the mushroom. Then we have the famous kingdom, which is the kingdom Animalia, and of course it consists of a lot of multicellular eukaryotes that ingest other organisms. That's why majorly all of them, almost all of them are heterotrophs. And then we have a kingdom or a group of animal which is called a protist. And the protists actually are mostly unicellular. One of the famous examples of the protist is the amoeba, as well as the Paramecium and Euglena. And they are very similar organisms, unicellular unicellular organism, and as well very similar, and even if it's a multicellular, it's a very similar organism. So let's talk about features of organisms. So you need to understand that all living organisms have to contain these four components. It must contain cytoplasm, it must have cell membranes as boundaries to separate it from the external environment. It must have a DNA as the genetic material to ensure its continuity of life. It must contain ribosomes in the cytoplasm. And actually ribosomes is responsible for the process of protein synthesis and the generation of proteins. Here it's a very simple comparison between animal and the plant. Of course, both of them are multicellular, majorly multicellular eukaryotes. Of course, both of them have nucleus. One of the major difference that animal cells have no cell walls, which exist in the plant and consist of cellulose. Animal cells as well have no chloroplast, but plant have chloroplast. Plant are autotrophs, but animals are heterotrophs. So let's see here how, for example, organisms are, especially animals are grouped together. So you have generally each group of animal are grouped on the basis of classification. If you look closely, there is one species of pear together with his some related species. They are collected in a genus, then family, then order, then class, then phylum, then kingdom, then domain. So you can see that the domain, the diversity of the organism is increasing, while when we go lower toward the species, the characteristics are more specialized within the organism. So generally, we can classify. We can say that when you go from kingdom in the classification, when you go from kingdom to species, there is increasing in the similarity between the organism. But when you go from species to kingdom, there is a decreasing in the similarity. And it is obvious when you see here the kingdom, you can understand that. So again here, as we said, if you go from species to kingdom, you'll see a decrease in similarity. You can see from the figure in the group of animal that is grouped under kingdom, if you look closely, they are not similar. But if you go to the, for example, to the order, you can see some similarity between animals. Okay, you can see that all of them, for example, are moving on 4 limbs here. This is a similarity between these group of animals. But here, if you go for the kingdom, the similarity is a lot decreasing, because the pattern of the body, actually the general pattern of the body is generally differ from the group of animals. So one of the first scientists that discussed adaptation and the origin of species, and actually published his book, The Origin of Species, in 1859, is Charles Darwin. And actually he discussed a lot of examples that show that the animal evolute and do evolution and the adaptation to suit and to survive in the environment. And we'll see some examples. So here, one of the famous example of Darwin is finches. So he generally started to study this. So you can see here, he proposed something called adaptive radiation. So actually, you can see that he proposed that different finches, a type of a bird that evolved differently from an origin hypothetical one, or actually present one, which feed on seeds. So you can see how the different peak structure of the different birds have evolved from this bird over years to suit the ways or the type of food these birds eat. You can see the peak now is adapted to pick leaves, other for fruit, other for insects, and a lot of others. Actually, and as well, he discussed the natural selection, and together with subsequent researches in this field, they came to a conclusion that natural selection actually occurs due to mutation that it is that can be transmitted over to next generation, and hence it will give the individual or the offspring an advantage to survive. So in this example, you can see originally the ancestor, you have the ancestor, and for some cause, the variation in the environment will create a mutation that create variation in the individual, represented here by 3 different colored circles. The unfavorable mutation will result in the extinction of this type of the organism, while the other continue to survive due to the mutation gave them the advantage of surviving, and they can transmit this one over reproduction, and the mutation is transmitted to the other offspring. Soon after that, it might occur another set of mutation that resulted to elimination or extinction of one that which already have been succeed over a previous mutation, but doesn't cope with the external environment at that time. So generally, you can see by the end you have an organism that may be totally different from the original ancestor, and this process can be denoted the natural selection. So the stress which is made by the environment can select which type of which organism can survive with a specific set of mutations that can be transmitted over offsprings. So you can see here a generalized structure of the this descendant of the finch bird, and you can see the different types of beaks of the bird that suit the type of food it eats, and these birds have evolved actually based on Darwin, based on the adaptation radiation. So you can see here, if you look closely and see how because the scientists have studied, and actually Darwin have studied that, you can see that this group of birds are collectively came from one ancestor, and these as well, both these 2 groups of birds, which actually the tree finch have a separate set of groups, and you have the ground finch have another set, but both of these one came as well from one ancestor. And you have the other types of the finches as either bud eater, seed eater, insect eaters. All of them came originally, as we said before, from the common ancestor. And this actually explain the theory of adaptation and evolution of Darwin. And actually each branch point represented the common ancestor. So here is a common ancestor for both these 2 groups, and you can see here this point as well is a common ancestor for this group of animal, until we going up to the tree, until you have one common ancestor that gave rise to all these different kinds of birds. And you can see here very good illustrative figure shows the different types of the birds, and owing to the different beaks. And actually these beaks are adapted to the type of food. You can see, for example, this bird, its beak is adapted for nectar feeding, while this bird, its beak is adapted for the fruit eating. This for filter, like swan, this for filter feeding, and so on, insect catching. So this is a mode of adaptation, as we said. In this perfect example, we can illustrate how environment will select the type or the species that will survive. So initially you have a population with varied traits. You can see here, these are beetles. You can see that you have different beetles with different colors. And due to the fact that there are light colored beetles, it can be easily grasped and eaten by the bird. So if you look to the population of the beetles, you understand that now over a long period of time, the light colored or the white colored beetles will soon be eliminated from the population over by the eating of the predator. So over time and over reproduction of the survival, which is have dark color, this will increase the frequency of the dark colored beetles over the white color until even got extinct this white color. So here the force of the environment have enabled only the dark colored beetles to survive, owing to the effect of the predator, which eat and consume and eliminate from the population the light colored beetles. You can see as well how the bat is adapted, and actually it is the only mammal that is able to fly, and these give him the advantage over years to got adapted and have the forelimb of this bat to be expanded to form like wings with a web between the finger. So actually, as you all know, it's not a bird, but it's a mammal that is got adapted, very well adapted to the environment. And of course, over ages and years, this kind of animal found itself in an environment that its genes need to be modified in a way that it will be adapted and have like wings to fly. So Darwin's actually one of the first scientists that proposed the natural selection, and actually it is a mechanism for the adaptation of evolutionary adaptation of population to their environment. So if we look closely, we have a population of organisms under the pressure of hereditary variation, changes in the gene content due to mutation, and under the effect of overproduction of offspring and competition as well. And due to the environmental factor, this will lead to difference in the reproductive success of some individual over the others. And this will, of course, will lead to the evolution of adaptation in the population that manage to succeed in facing the environmental stress due to the effect of the different mutation, the overproduction of a specific strain over others. You can see as well here just a symmetry showing that chimpanzee and bonobo is very, if you look closely on the on the percentage of difference between the DNA, you will see that the difference between our DNA, the difference between our DNA and that of chimpanzee and bonobo, it's only 1.2 difference. So if you look closely, this 1.2 difference in the in the DNA content between humans and the chimpanzee and bonobo, although it's a very small difference between these two types of organism, but it make a huge difference in the behavior of the two and the structure of the two different organisms. Okay, so let's talk about form and function. So how do long legs help this ant to survive in the desert heat? We'll understand that later on. Of course, one of the major advantage of this long head is to elevate the ant over the hot sand, and this will decrease its body temperature. So we can see here one of the, we'll talk about some of the adaptation for the organism that affect the form and function as well. So let's see for this figure, what the ant is doing, okay? You can see that there is an ant, and there is some sort of a liquid coming out from its abdomen. Here as well, you can see, what about these ants? You can see there is like 4 ants, and there are as well liquid is shooting out from its abdomen. So what about this beetle? As well, you can see a lot of liquid shooting out from its abdomen as well. So these actually wood ants, and these wood ants, the top figures, when threatened, these ants shoot volleys of formic acid into the air from their abdomen. They try to scare the offenders, and this formic acid will affect the offender, especially if it came into their eyes. And as well, you can see this bombardier beetle sprays actually a boiling hot liquid that contain irritating chemical used as a defense mechanism against its enemies. So you can see how these simple organisms, not very simple, but simple compared to us, have found some adaptation for defense. So let's see other adaptation. So you can see in this figure, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is this, actually it's a flower mantid. You can see it in Malaysia. So you can see this is here the mantid insect here. It's camouflaged. Another example you can see here is one of the, another mantid here. It appears as flower as well in South Africa. Another example, you can see it here, the leaf mantid. You can see its camouflage over the leaves. And one of other example is some kind of moth. You can see the moth. It's a type of nocturnal butterflies. You can see it is camouflaged as part of the tree. And you can see as well another, the chameleon, one of the famous example. You can see how it camouflage on the leaves. So actually this shows how the body and form can be adapted as a way of defense to the organism. Some of other modification, you can see that these are 2 types of birds, and you can see when hybridization occur between these 2 species can result to a totally different species and totally different genus, okay? So this is like hybridization between 2 different species. And you can see that this one can collect the, or can, which is morphologically, you can see that it got the short snout of the brown bear with gray fur of the other bear to form the new genus, which now something confusing. Actually, it is a mating or the hybridization between the 2 top figure to show this actually the hybrid golar bear. So it have long snout and the gray fur. These other famous example that show that the same fish, actually the same fish under the stages of predation can change its body form and structure. So if there is a lot of predators around this kind of fish, a lot of predator, you'll find that these fish have been adapted to have its body. Actually, this fish is called the mosquito fish. So actually, you'll find its body is adapted to be able to swim very fast, to rapidly escape from the predator, its body in the form of a streamline under high predation and high lot of predator around itself. Under low predation, you will find that these mosquito fish have a different body shape that favors long, steady swimming. This version of the mosquito fish doesn't care about the predators because there is a few predator, and over years it take the form of not the streamline as in case of its sister, which is faced by a lot of predators. Here another example to show how 2 group of animal are totally different because of the form and the body shape. You have the dog-like mammals, the genus Canis, and you have the horse-like mammals, the genus Equus. So the following figure shows 5 animals that all belong to the order the Mammalia. They all have hair, one of the characteristic features of the Mammalia, and one of the features that distinguish the mammals is the presence of the hair. And these animals have been classified into 2 groups, as we said, dog-like and horse-like. And so, in what opinion, what feature do you think differ between these 2 group of animals? So here you can see this simplified figure shows during the minute how your body can, what your body actually do during in 1 minute to read 1 page. Actually, you can see that your eyes will convert the image into electrical signal can be, or nerve impulses that is transmitted to the brain for processing. And as well, your heart in this 1 minute during reading the page will beat 70 times, pumping a lot, 5 liters of blood to your lung and 5 liters to the rest of the body. As well, approximately like around 150 million old red blood cells will die and be replaced by new ones. Besides that, resolving and processing the image coming from the eye or the visual input that you have got, your brain will send messages to different parts, especially muscles in your body, to and muscles for the eye to help the eye to move across the page to read, and this information is conveyed to the muscles through nerves. As well, during this minute while you're reading this page, you will breathe in and out around 12 times, and you exchange in that minute around 6 liters of air between the atmosphere and your lung. As well, more than 1 liter of blood will flow through your kidney for the process of the excretion and the removal of the unwanted material or the excess material or the waste product from your blood. 1 liter of blood in 1 minute. As well, your cells will consume around 250 ml of oxygen and produce around 200 ml of carbon dioxide. Your digestive system as well will be processing the last meal for transferring its simple product into the bloodstream and hence to your cells. And finally, you will use about 2 calories in this 1 minute of energy derived from the food to support the cost of living of your body and the contraction of the muscle during the process of reading. And these all processes, these are actually some of the processes which occur during 1 minute during the reading of 1 page. So let's see 2 of the major quotes concerning this topic. So, but Gupta have said that biology is the most powerful technology ever created. And actually, DNA is the software, proteins are hardware, and cells are actually the factories that uses these components. While Shiver have said that although nature needs thousands or millions of years to create new species, man needs only a few dozen of years to destroy one or destroy nature. This quote implies that men have contributed a lot in destroying a lot of ecosystem around the world. And this will conclude the first topic. Okay.